Graffiti. Writing or drawings scribbled, scratched, or sprayed illicitly on a wall or other surface in a public space. When you think of graffiti, you typically think of it as a young art form that was born in the last century. However, based off the most basic definition of graffiti, it has been around for quite possibly longer than traditional paint and canvas. Cave paintings dating back to as far as 30,000 BC have been discovered in ancient caves, often depicting bison and other animals. In more recent ancient history, one of the earliest pieces of graffiti used for advertisement was found in the ancient city of Ephesus, which is in modern-time Turkey. The advertisement apparently was used to direct citizens to the local brothel. However, when we think of graffiti, we don't typically imagine these sorts of things as true graffiti. In our minds, we specifically think of young artists, or often referred to as vandals, with an aerosol can of paint and a bare wall for them to paint upon.
A certain German chancellor is lost.
This form of graffiti has been around in the United States since as early as the 1920s. One of the first instances of international spread of graffiti was during World War II, when American soldiers that were stationed abroad would sketch the character depiction known as "Kilroy was here" on any surface that they could find. Many theories and conspiracies have been thought of concerning the creation and the meaning of the graffiti, but to this day there's still no valid explanation of it, which also adds its allure within pop culture.
You toddle along, and all your Nazis too. Or you may get something to remind you of the old...
This is DJ Kool Herc, the father of hip-hop. This is going out to my man over in Japan, Utaka. To my man, Crazy A. This how we do.
In the late 1960s, graffiti first emerged in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The main writers who began the movement were Cornbread and Cool Earl, who began tagging. Tagging is an early form of graffiti where writers sign their names throughout the city on public property. Soon, the movement migrated to New York City, where its popularity flourished, thanks in part to Taki 183, who of which derived his street name from, well, the street he lived off of. During this time, graffiti evolved from simply tagging to colorful masterpieces in the urban development setting. This caused great interest from the public and helped with creating new graffiti artists. Graffiti was expressed by artists on public walls, public transportation systems, and on billboards. Soon, this popular phenomenon developed into a contemporary art movement commonly known as street art, and the artists were referred to as writers. Due to an increasing amount of new writers, particularly in New York City, and an overwhelming amount of graffiti popping up throughout the city, the works of the artists began to blur and competition grew. This prompted another important evolution of modern graffiti art: personalization. Many writers began to incorporate specific, unique characteristics of their pieces, such as using stars, crowns, or other defining shapes. One particular piece of work was done by Stay High 149 that included a smoking joint with a stick figure from a TV show called The Saint.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going.
During the peak of the street art movement, which was around 1975 to 1977, formal groups and galleries of graffiti artwork were implemented. The United Graffiti Artists was founded by artist Martinez, who selected the top street artists to present their work at the Razor Gallery. Graffiti art was displayed legally in other forms through the Graffiti Hit Parade and on mural whole cars. This sort of mainstream success and social acceptance continued on, and in 1979, writers Lee Quinones and Fab Five Freddy were invited by Claudio Bruni to do an art opening in Rome, which was the first time Italians had formally seen graffiti art presented to the public. However, during the turn of the decade and all throughout the 80s, pop culture and media were the prime transporters of New York City graffiti art to the European continent.
Fab Five Freddy told me everybody slide. DJ spinning, I said, my, flash is fast, flash is cool, Francois, c'est pas, flash ain't no do, and you don't stop, shoot shot, go out to the parking lot, and you get in your car and drive real far, and you drive all night, and then you see a light, and it comes right down, go out at night.
The migration of graffiti art that spread all throughout Europe was displayed through its roots in hip-hop culture, particularly in music, dance, and film. In 1981, Blondie's single, Rapture, was influenced by the friendship that Debbie Harry had with Fab Five Freddy. The accompanying music video had many cameos from influential graffiti artists, including Fab Five Freddy, and gave a glimpse to the rest of the world the connection of hip-hop culture and graffiti art.
Be pure, take a tour through the sword on strain the rain.
You're ready on the right. Ready on the left.
Media further expanded the knowledge of graffiti art through its use of film. In 1983, 2 films were released and seen internationally that explicitly highlighted graffiti art. The first of which was a fiction film called Wild Style that included many important New York City graffiti artists such as Fab Five Freddy, Lady Pink, Lee Quinones, and many others. It also boasted a hefty soundtrack comprising of hip-hop music with a total of 37 songs expanding over 2 discs. The film is considered to be the first hip-hop motion picture and has been credited for influences in the hip-hop music and graffiti art realms.
Wild Style, the house will rock.
The second film to be released in 1983 was a PBS documentary called Style Wars. Although it is a film about hip-hop culture, this documentary chooses to put a heavy emphasis on graffiti art and how it plays a part in the hip-hop community. The film brings up many valid concerns that surround graffiti art, such as the legal issues surrounding it.
Graffiti, as the name itself, is not an art. But I can sure as hell tell you that that's a crime.
The artist's reasons for creating graffiti, and how these two topics conflict with one another. The overall message that the film tries to convey is that, as a viewer, you should look at graffiti art through the artist's perspective and try to understand why they're doing it, and what sort of message they're trying to convey.
Somebody say, get up, get up. Somebody say, get up, get up. You are that good, you throwing it down, you compliment this funky sound.
And not too slick, a little more thick, probably do the trick. 4 cars rocking on. Don D, rock shocking to the break of dawn. Get down.
Also in 1983, Fab Five Freddy and Futura 2000 took a more direct approach with spreading graffiti art throughout Europe. In this year, they went along on the New York City rap tour to Paris and London. This tour wasn't just about the music, but was about the hip-hop culture in general, which included breakdancing and graffiti art. Among having rappers on the tour, there were also various b-boys, breakdancers, and graffiti artists that would partake in the live shows with their performance art of choice.
They know your name. A whack attack people try to bite your game, so don't bite, y'all.
On New York City street with a smoking funky beat, they used to hang out all night and just gang fight, leaving bodies all over the street. But now it's hip-hop, breakdance.
Another notable expansion of graffiti art was within the realm of Hollywood. In 1984, with the international release of Beat Street, the whole world became aware of graffiti art. The film is similar in the sense of Wild Style, and depicts hip-hop culture in a fictional storyline while exemplifying characteristics of hip-hop culture through the characters. There are various characters in the film that are rappers, DJs, b-boys, and graffiti artists.
On Beat Street. Beat Street.
One of the first documented and notable instances of graffiti migrating over from New York City to Milan occurred also in 1984. A growingly popular American artist, Keith Haring, who had collaborated with Andy Warhol at one point, was invited by Milan fashion label Fiorucci to design one of their walls in their flagship store in Milan using graffiti art. One of the first leaders in Milan graffiti art was Davide Ottimo Tinelli. Often credited as the father of Milano graffiti art, Ottimo paved the way for future generations of writers. In 1993, he decided to play a greater role in the city by becoming an elected city council member. which much of his career focus was on making the city beautiful through art and colors. He remained in this position until 2006. At the beginning of the 90s, another artist helped shape Milan graffiti art. Rai Martini began writing at the young age of 12 years old, quickly honing and developing his craft.
Ognuno è il miglior maestro di se stesso. A me mi sono stati dati dei consigli agli inizi, però credimi, mi sono stati dati in un certo modo, nel senso nessuno mi ha mai detto fai questo, fai quello. Io ci sono arrivato a capire fai questo, fai quello. Anzi, era più facile che qualcuno dei miei padri, tra virgolette, mi dicesse minchia che firma marcia che hai fatto, fai cacare, proprio così. E io cazzo, il giorno dopo la dovevo fare più bella, se no ero il peggiore.
These days, Rai has transitioned from traditional graffiti art into abstract paintings and fine art, but still uses his influence of graffiti art in his works. Now, let's fast forward to today.
Rap futuristico! Ah, rap futuristico! Oh, rap futuristico!
Ma cos'è sta paranoia?
Aspetta, fammi fare!
Dai, facci ballare, lo fanno tutti tranne te!
Cosa?
Dai, Fibra, caccia un po' di rap futuristico!
Ok, rap futuristico!
Fabri Fibra's music video for Tranne Te is one of the best examples of a clear reflection of old-school New York City hip-hop culture. The video has all of the main characteristics that were evident in hip-hop culture during the 70s and 80s, integrating together rap, breakdancing, DJing, and graffiti art. However, this is Italy. Besides having a different language in the video, the lines between cultural and geographical differences have become blurred, and hip-hop culture has now become truly global. The same can be said for graffiti art. Graffiti art is one of the most social forms of art, which can be credited to its illegal roots and the simple need of just having an extra pair of eyes to watch out for the police. Graffiti crews have been around since the beginning of the movement, and Milan today is certainly no exception. Milan has many crews running on the streets, but their prime reason isn't simply for protection. Members from the crew Sprutzer typically collaborate together because they just enjoy each other's company. It's a fellowship for them. Each member has their own style and their own technique that differs from one another, but this always seems to complement each other's work. Crews in Milan don't typically exist for protection's sake against the police. In 2006, due to increases in graffiti art throughout Italian cities and from growing pressure by worried citizens, a law was proposed to the Italian Senate. This law would see that those convicted of illegal graffiti writing would face a maximum jail time of 2.5 years and possibly a €10,000 fine. This new, proposed law would hopefully discourage writers from writing, since at that time, the only things that could happen to anyone that was caught would be a possible 45-day house arrest and a maximum fine of €2,500. This law did not pass. In 2008, Silvio Berlusconi, at the time the Prime Minister of Italy, proposed a new law banning illegal graffiti art. This new law would see that the maximum fine for defacing a historic structure would be €30,000 and possibly up to 40 days in jail. Also, this law did not get put into effect either. In fact, over the years, graffiti art has become even more culturally accepted within Milan. There are districts in the city that are well known for their talented graffiti art murals, such as in the Navigli area, and for permissible writing like on the walls around San Siro. The gallery hall and areas that surround Leoncavolo are filled with public graffiti art and also display some of the largest scaled murals in the city. However, one of the most groundbreaking moments of graffiti art in Milan happened in 2007, when the Comune di Milano hosted an art exhibit called Street Art, Sweet Art. The exhibit was solely about graffiti art in Milan during the last 20 years and put on display at Padiglione d'Arte Contemporanea, or abbreviated to PAC. This exhibit was paid for in part by the city of Milan, which directly endorsed graffiti art and its history within the city. Due to the public success of graffiti art, it should come as no surprise that some artists were approached by companies to use their graffiti styling for commercial use. In one such case, a local Milan graffiti artist, simply known as Pau, worked together with Italian candy company Galatine to produce an assortment of cartoon-style cows with various expressions to be placed onto candy wrappers.
Step refistico, rap futuristico.
However, not all graffiti artists in Milan have found motivation within financial profits. For Mr. Di Maggio, it is a form of expression. In his piece, Save Oil, Burned Fat, he simply wanted to express to the public that they should stop polluting as much with their vehicles and do both the environment and their bodies some good by commuting around by bicycle. Since Milan is one of the most industrial and architecturally bland cities in Italy, many artists find themselves feeling too engulfed by the gray of the city. For artists C and Sale Due, they both simply wish to brighten the often bland and gloomy city with color. Here we see Sale Due working on one of his many vivid and colorful wall murals. Even though the vast majority of graffiti you may see in Milan is simple tagging, which you may view as disrespectful and unsightly, it is impossible to ignore the many other beautiful pieces that fill the city. Tagging may be where graffiti gets its roots, but the imaginative and thought-provoking murals of Milan are what helped to continue the progress of the graffiti art movement. The term art is an ever-continuing process of new styles, movements, and ideas. Graffiti art is no different in that respect. With the continuing progress of technology, we are just beginning with a new style of graffiti that perfectly harmonizes the concept of graffiti with advanced technology. Going back to the most basic definition of graffiti, you may notice that it never specified what medium needs to be used in order to scribble on a public place. Now, I leave you with a treat by giving you a glimpse into the future of graffiti art with a new style called laser tagging.